And Davin, you propose thinking about school construction sites beyond the construction site itself, and you call these community investment zones. Can you flesh that vision out for our listeners? What would such a zone entail? Who would such a zone be for, and who needs to be engaged in that zone? Why does it matter to think beyond the boundaries of just the construction site?
Well, as I say in the op-ed piece, I think that this is a great opportunity for Baltimore to have all this investment put into the poorest neighborhoods. But what I fear is that after 10 years, we're going to end up in the same place we are today. I think that if you really look at what's holding back the schools, you really have to consider the health of neighborhoods and families. Really, it's a comprehensive problem that requires a comprehensive solution. So what I'm advocating for is that we develop programs and develop neighborhoods around the schools so that really everything that citizens need to thrive can be provided through these community investment zones. And the idea is for within a concentrated, defined area around these new schools, that any number of programs targeting the local population could be situated, such as after-school care, a rec center if need be, a cultural center, but also programs for adults such as literacy and workforce development, and even the business community come in, such as laundromats or restaurants, grocery stores.
So it's programming, but also facilities.
Right. It's a combination of everything, where you have the public sector, the nonprofit sector, and the government working together to really concentrate their talent and resources in a coordinated effort. And I think that it is largely about providing the facilities to house all these things and creating a sense of place where you have a sense of ownership from having a beautiful environment that brings people together, that will be attractive, and that really helps people identify with their neighborhoods and become invested in it.
So this will require a large group of stakeholders, this vision. Can you flesh out a little bit what kind of stakeholders would need to be at the table for this type of vision to happen?
Yeah, by nature, it requires collaboration between all sorts of parties. Certainly, the city schools will need to support and coordinate to make this happen. And neighborhoods, nonprofits that are involved in the community and in the schools, the funding community, and developers and corporate sponsors. But really, I think in terms of who has the power to make this happen, I think the mayor and her team, if they were to lead in bringing together all these people at the table, it can be very powerful. I think that there are specific agencies in the city, such as the planning, BDC, housing offices, and even health and human services that can really lead in bringing all our resources together.
All right, Davin, so now that you've given us a sense of what these community investment zones would be. Can you discuss the role the city would have in this vision, the role the city would have in actually creating zones beyond construction sites and zones that think about the neighborhood more comprehensively?
Well, I think the city has a lot of tools at their disposal. They have public works who can come and improve streets, plant trees, improve sidewalks, and increase lighting. They have the Vacancy to Value program, which is quite successful and can be leveraged to transform these areas around schools. But also, the BDC can get involved and work with developers and set up public-private partnerships to make it possible for them to invest in the city, in these impoverished neighborhoods especially. And additionally, there's a role for Parks and Rec to collaborate with the schools to operate both the rec centers and also make the school grounds into public parks. I think there's a real opportunity for the city to take ownership of this 10-year plan as a way to really transform the city.
And I think you've already hinted at the answer to this, but by bringing in all these different stakeholders, but how do we make sure residents without children or residents who have already sent their children to school, how do we make sure they're engaged around these schools so they really can be community anchors?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is really about the entire neighborhood. I think that schools are really important. Families are very, very important to the success of neighborhoods. But if neighborhoods could thrive, everybody benefits. In fact, the entire city would benefit. I think that there could be services there that are useful for everybody, the entire population, every demographic within the neighborhood. Such as if we're to make the school grounds into a community park with community gardens, and if there were to be some kind of cultural center or a recreation center, that would be open for everybody. If there were to be a neighborhood clinic that could serve everybody. So I think that it is comprehensive in its reach and its ability to transform.
Got it. So when I listen to you here, and I read your op-ed piece on building schools, it does resonate with what we see, I think, the federal government finally understanding with their place-based programs, with their Promise Neighborhoods programs, with their sustainable communities, with their choice neighborhoods. Do you see a change in policy happening across the country where we're thinking beyond brick and mortar of schools and transportation and housing and silos, and we're starting to break down those barriers with agencies working together?
Well, the trend now is for schools to become community schools and really absorbing many of the social programs within the school facility itself to reach out to the greater population, families, providing after-school care, preschool care, and so the idea of more of this comprehensive approach is out there. Now, the idea of this community investment zone is broader in bringing together development as well as services and commercial activity around schools. And there have been some good precedents for that as well. Down in Atlanta, there's the East Lake community. And in New Orleans, there's a initiative there to apply this kind of comprehensive approach citywide. So it's actually very comparable to the struggles we are dealing here and how they are addressing it.
So there are some agency folks in Atlanta who get it. There are some agency folks in New Orleans who get it. Do we have that leadership in Baltimore? Do we have the leadership in place? Do our city officials get it?
Well, I like to believe so, and I think that there is a great opportunity for them to seize. There are initiatives in the city that are collaborative interagency initiatives, and I think that applying that type of thinking to the school construction will be a start. I think that it's just a start, and it really needs to be expanded. It needs to become a broad vision that people could get excited about. But in terms of the city's involvement with the legislation, there's a MOU, memorandum of understanding, that each of the parties, the city schools, state authority, and the city has to follow, and part of that really obligates the city to get involved in community development. I think that this is a strategy that the city can adopt to make good on that obligation.
Okay, I want to sidestep the conversation into another area of expertise you hold as an architect and somebody who went to design school. So what's the role in these community investment zones? What's the role of design? And can you compare how you envision the design of these schools with, say, when I look around and see some Baltimore schools, I see inward-facing schools, and I see design that doesn't embrace the community. And would you be willing to just talk on that subject for a second?
Yes. Well, I think first I'll explain that my philosophy of design is that it is problem solving. So the entire notion of designing a facility and tackling this neighborhood problem is all about bringing together all the issues and challenges and developing a solution for it. School buildings today in the city are very inward focusing, like you said, and they're very austere and closed off to the neighborhoods. I think that the new schools can be much more engaging to the neighborhood and open and transparent, as well as on the interior being very innovative in fostering learning. But really the entire neighborhood can be revitalized by creating a sense of place. If you were to create environments where people feel welcome, where it'll attract people to gather, those places will feel safer. It'll make people feel a sense of ownership, and I think that's the real groundwork for how communities will improve.
Great. So then I always like to end our interviews by talking about how citizens can get engaged around issues, because that's what our organization focuses on. So first, where does CPHA fit in this puzzle? We're an organization that works to build and empower community residents around policies and programs we believe in. So how can we make sure that the School Construction Act is about communities?
Well, I'm really thankful to hear that CPHA is interested in supporting the community investment zone concept. I think that your history in Baltimore is really deeply rooted, and I see your relationship with communities and leaders in Baltimore as being very powerful. This is a grassroots movement, and bringing people together to to embrace and champion this initiative would be important. And I think CPHA could go a long way in getting the word out and bringing people together.
Great. And how would you advise citizens listening to our interview online with you to get engaged around the school construction? How can they take action right now if they want to be part of the School Construction Act?
One very easy way to get involved is to start attending these school visioning sessions that are being sponsored by and run by the ACLU's Transform Baltimore initiative. And those happen pretty frequently, every other week or so, and I think you could find out about them through the transformbaltimore.org.
We'll put that on our website as well.
But in general, I think that really taking ownership of the city and pushing and advocating for innovative and visionary approaches, reaching out to our public leaders to help them think bigger and to really believe that Baltimore can be the great city that we envision.
Great. Thank you, Davin.